What we believe about sex is often shaped long before we ever experience it. There are things that are said during your childhood and teenage years that are having a huge impact. And if you grew up in the church, this may have been purity talks that left you feeling ashamed. Maybe your parents were silent and just never talked about sex. Or there are church teachings that emphasize all of the warnings and the no's and neglect, talking about the good and the blessing that God had for sex in marriage. You know what? Years later, these messages can still be affecting you. They can be in your thoughts, they can show up in your body, and they definitely can show up in your relationship. So, in this episode, we are going to go back to the beginning where your view of sex originated and why recognizing those roots is the first step to healing and freedom. And yes, the permission to enjoy intimacy. So, our question today is, where did your view of sex come from and why did it matter in marriage? First, let's talk about common sources of distorted messages. I have 4 to share with you. Number 1, it's that family silence or the shame-based messages. Maybe you heard, good girls don't. Or we don't even talk about that in our family. Hey, I've heard messages to guys like, whatever you do, don't get her pregnant, which implies you can do anything as long as she doesn't get pregnant. And when there is zero conversation, you would think, oh, they say negative things. What if they say nothing? Well, that silence equals shame and confusion by default. So it does make a difference. A second area of distorted messages comes from the church, and they might have had an overemphasis. I would call it a bias about girls and modesty. And this happens to the point where the girls feel like they are not only responsible for themselves, but also for what happens in the boys' thoughts because of what she was wearing. Another message from the church that's distorted is that a wife must meet her husband's needs at all cost, and that she is only good when she's pleasing others. That right there is so damaging. A third area of distorted messages is pressure from culture and media, where, oh my goodness, we are just seeing everything that is overly sexualized. Hey, they sell hamburgers and it seems like there's something sexy in the commercial. With all of the movies, the dating, it's just this cheapness for sex. It's always about the hookup lifestyle. And if they are looking to pick someone to be in a relationship with, much less marriage, they're measuring their performance in sex to know if they'd be a good candidate. There is nothing healthy about that. And on the flip side of that, in culture and media, is what I call the Hallmark syndrome. It's these movies that are overly romanticized. That's not reality. Things don't happen that fast, and you wouldn't want to get to be that deep and personal without building trust, and trust takes time. So the fourth area of distorted messages is if you have experienced unwanted or unhealthy sexual encounters. And hey, this is a long list. I'm going to keep it brief. So this would include pornography, abuse, affairs, when either scripture or other messages have been manipulated and it feels like you're being coerced into having sex, when sex is turned into currency as power. And hey, I've even heard modern comedian talking about, well, hey, if I have sex with my husband, I can get a purse out of that. So we really don't want to frame it that way. Also, we know that there are harmful roles that are just kind of subliminal, and it's about male entitlement and about female obligation. So any of those messages can be damaging, and many times we have been exposed to them again and again, and they're normalized. That's why we can't like put our finger on it and realize, ooh, not something that I want to be a part of. So, how do these roots quietly, subtly shape intimacy? If they're spoken or unspoken, just implied, it still has an influence. And it can cause you to consider what you expect or even fear in the bedroom. A lot of times we don't track down these thoughts until something happens. It also affects how easily you will trust, how you will connect, how you will feel safe, and how that allows you to grow your sexual desire. So, once again, if a woman doesn't feel safe, then she is not going to be able to enter into intimacy. Her body won't even respond, much less her emotions, her mind, the whole package there. It also influences your sense of identity and worth in conjunction with your sexuality. Everything, if it's all been skewed as, hey there, little lady, give me a wink, give me a smile, that her whole persona is identified by sexual innuendo, wow, it is really going to be something to overcome, which is why we're talking about it, because so many clients that I see have been exposed to this, but once again, they have not really clearly seen, because over time, you build up some resistance, but that doesn't mean that it's not having an effect. So the disconnection with sex, I want to tell you, is way more common than you can imagine. So if you have felt like this is just me, something's wrong with me, I'm weird, I'm strange, no, it is very common, sad to say, you are not alone. And if sex feels more like pressure than pleasure, that's why we are here to talk. You're not broken. You're not a failure. You just live in a fallen world. That's why I said it's in the media, it's in the church, it's in culture. It could be messages from your family. You've really been a target all of these years for these messages to come at you. But God sees your heart and He invites you to healing, not to shame. So I know you want to jump into this, so let me challenge you with some reflection questions. I have 3, and the third one is a doozy, so stay with me. Number 1, what messages did I receive about sex as a child and a teenager? Number 2, what did my church or Christian community I was involved with teach about sex, explicitly or implicitly? The no's and the yeses. And then here's the one I need you to give special attention to. What beliefs are or fears still affect me now? Can you trace those? Now, I want to tell you that you don't have to just stop with this information. We have a series of 5 videos that are unpacking all of these issues. This is within the program Permission to Enjoy Intimacy. So I'm going to be helping you with that. If you'd like to have the whole guide about permission to enjoy intimacy so you can let go of the shame, the pain, the pressure, and then you can receive God's design for sexual intimacy. If you're interested in that, please look for the link below for permission to enjoy. And I'm praying for you because if you're watching, then this entire time has been covered by prayer. So be encouraged by that too. Thanks so much for joining me today. And remember, God's design for a thriving marriage is an intimate connection in spirit, soul, and body.